and 1550 nanometers.
Yeah, you have O and C band, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we can use either somewhere in between there, around 1320 nanometers, that can be separated off with wavelength division multiplexing to keep the quantum channel integral the whole way along. So it's a minor modification, but it shouldn't interfere with anything that's there already. But it's the kind of thing you have to keep in mind. So Julian is giving a talk here at the conference about having characterized the channel between the Brookhaven lab and the lab at Stony Brook. We rented these fibers from a company that provides fibers on Long Island. So this is real regular, it's not special fiber at all, it's real regular commercial stuff. They actually happened to have it there already. It wasn't being used, and so we got to rent it for our purposes. So it is real stuff and it shows real world effects. So Julian, you could say a few words there about detecting traffic on the Long Island Expressway.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's a good point. I'm going to be giving this talk today at 4 p.m. and I can share the slides with you and maybe tell you a little bit what I'm going to be talking about. It's pretty much related to pretty much what like Paul was just mentioning. So yeah, like. Sorry, you see my screen?
I'm glad to see that you're using this background.
Oh yeah, we are actually, since we had like 8 talks presenting this week, we agreed that we were all going to use the same background to hopefully create more impact here, and we do like it. Dimitris has a different one that actually I think it might be better, but anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's nice that you guys mentioned the quantum repeater, because yeah, I mean, that's like the main goal, or like the big challenge right now to build a quantum network. I like to see the quantum network just like the big definition, or the general definition, just to be able to distribute entanglement between different nodes, right? And that's it. The question is like, well, that could be useful for so many things. So what people think usually the first approach is quantum communication, right? Like what is called a quantum key distribution, to be able to share secret keys, a key between 2 parties, right? But there are way other things that could be used, right? You know that all over the planet we have arrays of telescopes just looking to the skies, trying to make precise measurements of, like stars, planets, galaxies, anything you want. And to these days, like, you actually take the signals from those telescopes and you interfere them to try to improve the resolution that you can have of those measurements. So there are ideas that if you are able to entangle these telescopes, you can improve that resolution that you can have. And that's just an array of sensors, right? You can also think of atomic sensors, a sensor that measure magnetic fields, or even atomic clocks, right? Just to measure time. And if you are able to entangle using quantum entanglement among these different sensors and spread them, over long distances, there are many interesting things that you could do. You guys know also that there are, private companies trying to build quantum computers. And the next step that this company needs to do is to be able to interconnect these computers between them, because what the machines they have right now is not what is called like a fully quantum computer, but if you are able to quantum entangle them, you might get a more powerful machine. And so that's how I see the whole picture of what the quantum network it is and all the possible applications. But the holy grail is the quantum repeater, right? To be able to entangle 2 parties that are very, very far away. And on Monday, you probably heard from some of the students that were there, things that we're working on. You can ignore these names for now. These are actually some of the students from the Stony Brook that gave some presentation on Monday that I'm going to be mentioning during my talk today. But for example, if you talk to Serin and Sig, they're talking on, or they're working on producing entangled photons, right? So you probably saw the setup when they had like some non-linear crystal, and you can put a wavelength, a light with some wavelength, and then you can produce entangled photons, pretty much, but what is called parametric down conversion. And they mention now what they want to do is to put those crystals inside an optical cavity. Pretty much you can just bounce your light back and forth, so you can enhance this non-linear response that the crystal creates in the light, right? You probably saw also the memories. You talked to Cedar and Steven, they're in the lab, and that it looks like that big cylinder that you probably saw that they call Mr. Freeze, and we just put a glass cell with rubidium atoms, which those are the ones that we use in the lab at Brookhaven and Stony Brook, and we try to build a quantum memory with that technology. So you probably saw that part. And that's the same atoms that we use to do frequency conversion. Like what Paul was saying, all our memories, we can manipulate these atoms and we can store them in our memories to a specific wavelength that is 795 nanometers, but we can do very nice things in the atoms and control the light with the atoms and the atoms with the light. But the problem with that wavelength is that if you put it in an optical fiber, they don't propagate too far. They just dissipate pretty quickly. And like Paul was saying, the fibers that are already deployed, commercial fibers, they're actually very good in the telecom wavelength, 1300, 1500. So we use our same atoms to convert that wavelength, the 795 nanometer wavelength, to 1324 nanometer, which actually propagates much better. But actually, we have these fibers that are 70 kilometers connecting Stony Brook and BNL, and they have like about 23 dB losses. What that means is that for every 200 photons that we send from one node to the other, only one arrives. And we had to live with this. And for example, something that I'm going to be talking today is like, probably when you visit many labs, people talk about how to build these quantum devices, right? Like a quantum memory, quantum entangled photon sources, right? Frequency conversion, and that's what we call the quantum devices, which is kind of like the bottom of my picture here. But what we are trying to do at BNL and Stony Brook is to have a test bed that is separated by 70 kilometers, and we want to expand all the way to Long Island, make it all the way to the city. What we want to point out is that there are another two things that you need to consider, right? And this is what we call here like this classical control and management layer, because we need to synchronize our nodes. The time synchronization between our separate nodes has to be very good, like sub-nanoseconds. And that is not possible today with like GPS, right? Like standard technology. So we have to do something better than that. And that's why we have to create this control layer when we can synchronize all our clocks and we can trigger all our electronics in each of the nodes, so we know that whatever time sequence, whatever pulses we're sending from Stony Brook, we're going to receive them in BNL, and we can have a one-to-one connection, and understanding what kind of information we are sending. And there is the middle layer that we call here, that is what we call the quantum enabling layer. So it's just it's a series of measurements that we have to keep doing in real time to guarantee that our quantum connection between the two nodes is going to be quantum. Meaning that it's going to preserve coherence, like quantum coherence of our states, and that you're going to have like quantum interference. And those are like two important layers that we have to work on all of that. So specifically the research group at Stony Brook is working towards building that quantum repeater, but then together we are building the test bed to have all these three layers combined to be able to have what is called a quantum network in the future. Here is just a picture of pretty much that fiber, actually, how it goes from Stony Brook to BNL. That's the 70-kilometer fiber that how Paul was saying. We actually have 4 of them. We use like what we call 2 quantum channels and 2 classical channels. They are literally identical fiber. It's just we need to use 2 of them to send our classical signals back and forth, how I was saying, to synchronize our clocks. And we use the 2 channels to send our photons with our polarization, and that's how we use what we call the qubit, right? That's how we code our two-level system.
Yeah, can I interrupt for just a moment?
Please.
Just to, a good kind of top-level way to think about it is quantum effects become sort of manifest when photons are indistinguishable. So to be indistinguishable, photons have to be in the same energy and time buckets, and they have to be in the same polarization. So as Julian's going to explain, the system here to maintain the photons that are created separately at the same frequency that they are created and arrived and detected at the same time, and that their polarization is maintained. The goal is to keep them in the same quantum state so that they'll be indistinguishable, and then we can use their quantum interference effects.
Right, and people have made these demonstrations, but they are all in the size of an optical table, right? Just within a lab. And they say, well, we can do this, you know, with like many meters or, you know, even kilometers of fiber, but in many cases, what they mean is like one very long fiber in a spool that is just on the floor under the optical table, right? So that system is very forgiving, you know, like just one single fiber in a temperature and humidity control lab. But in real life, things are different. So you see that fiber that is connecting the two laboratories between the university and BNL. And something interesting is that if you notice, that fiber goes kind of like along big roads. You know, here actually goes to like the